Hello Year 5. Welcome to another video by Mr. Bachatsky. This time we're looking at something called narrative structure. A narrative, as you probably already know, is another name for a story. And the structure of the narrative is the way that the narrative's put together. So there are different ways to put a story together, of course, different sections that we might have, but we're going to look today at one of the most common ways that authors put together their stories. And so let's have a look at that now. There are four main parts to this structure. The first part is called the orientation. The second part's called the complication. Part 3 is the resolution. And some authors put in a coda at the end, which is the fourth part. That's optional, but a lot of authors do put one in, so we'll look at that as well. Okay, let's have a look at the purposes of each of these four things. Why do we do an orientation, first of all? Number one, we introduce the main characters or character and we describe the setting. For example, when is the story set and where is it set? That's what we aim to do in the orientation of the story. Okay, what happens next is the complication. Once we've established who the characters are and where and when they are taking place, we then need a complication. Let's get rid of this. And a complication says that we introduce a situation that changes things or causes a problem, for one or more of the characters. Now the complication is really important because it drives the action. It kind of says, well, something has to happen here. And then, of course, when you have a problem, then you need a resolution. You need to solve the problem somehow. So that's the next stage in our structure. We resolve the problem or situation so that it is no longer an issue. Although things never tend to be exactly the same as they were before. Now, some stories finish there, but lots of them have a coda, which is the last part of the story. And so why would we do that? Well, for this reason. I can't get rid of that. Let's try again. Here we go. The coda is a little bit that's added on to say how things turn out in the end for the characters. And we're going to look at an example of a story now that myself has written, and that was good grammar. And we're going to split it up into these four parts to make it easy to see what's happening at each stage of the story. Okay, now I'm going to use my narrative speaking voice during this story as we go through it, and then I'm going to stop at the end of each section and we'll talk about each section as we go through. So this little story is a story that I call Dorothea and the Wizard of Oz. Let's get started. Once upon a time, there lived a clever and sporty young girl called Dorothea. She lived by herself on a farm in a little town called Bangor. She disliked farm life and hated milking Bessie the cow. Secretly, she longed for an adventure. Okay, it's me again. Now, this part we've just read is called the orientation. And you can see it's where we introduce the main characters and describe the setting. So the main character is, of course, the lovely Dorothea. There she is down there. And the setting, we'll look down at the text at the bottom. Where and when, or when. Let's start with when. Once upon a time. We all love that beginning to a story. Okay, so that's any time really. And where, well, you can tell me. Exactly, a little farm in a little town called Bangor. So that's all we've needed to do in the orientation. We can now move on to the next part of the story, which is our complication. What's going to happen? One day, a huge flood came and swept away the farmhouse while Dorothea was asleep inside. When she woke up, she found she was no longer in Bangor. She was in a strange new land. How will I ever get back to Bangor? She wondered. Okay, so we now come to the complication of the story. This is the situation that changes things, it causes a problem for one of the characters. Now you can see the picture illustrating the problem. The house is being swept away in a flood. And of course Dorothea wakes up somewhere else. This is a big problem. She wants to get back to Bangor, so we have to have a resolution. Here we go. Fortunately, just at that moment, a wizard appeared. "I am the Wizard of Ooze," said the wizard. "What can I do for you, young lady?" "Please, Mr. Wizard, send me back to my hometown," replied Dorothea. So the Wizard of Ooze cast a spell, and when Dorothea woke up, she was back again in her home at Bangor. Okay, so there's the resolution. So Dorothea is back at home. The wizard has saved her. He's cast a spell, and everything is back to where it should be in the first place. But we're not going to finish the story there. We've got a coda. And from that day on, Dorothea decided that she really did like her home and was happy to milk Bessie. Unfortunately, she also had great trouble getting to sleep because she always feared that she might be carried away by some natural disaster. So, there we have the coda, which is the ending that just kind of wraps it all up and says this is how life continued on for our main character, Dorothea. And that, boys and girls, brings us to the end. Thanks for watching.